time, we're going to work with highlighters and our neon, if you have the neons. If you don't have them, you don't have to have them. It doesn't matter. Like I said, these are all pretty much interchangeable. But really quickly, before we start, I want to talk about, this is just a scrap piece that I have two of them that I'll use throughout the class. I want to explain why we are going to use, what did I do with it? The matte medium, why we have to have the matte medium. So for me to explain that, I need to actually show you. There's nothing better than seeing it for yourself. So what I'm going to do is just spread a little bit. I'm just getting some matte medium out over on my palette off to the side here. So I'm going to mark an area. Let me see if I can find, I think I put my marker, in the wrong place. So I'll get this marker. Alright, so I am going to take a section of the paper and a section of her face. So right here, I'm going to split it in half, and this is going to be gesso, or not gesso, matte medium. See, the problem is my matte medium container from Liquitex looks exactly like my clear gesso container from Liquitex. Gesso would not be something I would recommend for this because it's very gritty, and we actually want the opposite. We want a slightly slick surface. You might think that we could achieve it by using gloss photo paper, but that's actually not the case. Even gloss photo paper, it's still raw paper. It's still going to grab the ink as soon as you put it down and not let you do anything with it. So in order to show you what I'm specifically what I'm getting at, I'm going to put some matte medium over this tiny area here, and then we want to let that dry. So I've got matte medium here on the brush. I'm just going to get a coat on here. I want to make sure it's definitely sealed, so because we don't want raw paper there. All right, so while that's drying, I actually want to take the face that we're going to be working with and go ahead and put a coat of matte medium over the entire thing. Dry so that we can work on our girl. Now if I had done that process with the alcohol solvent based markers, I might have run into issues only because I don't have a paint rag. Here, I'm going to get a paint rag. I might have run into issues because the solvent marker might have eaten into the matte medium. So I don't recommend starting, if you're going to start with the solvent-based markers, I don't recommend starting with the matte medium. Use raw paper with your solvent markers, and then when you're ready to go further with it, then add your matte medium. Because your markers the solvent markers are alcohol solvent-based, they're not going to smear when you put matte medium over them. Just remember, don't use anything else that's not a permanent when dry marker before you put your matte medium down. Okay, so and I will also say, once we, for all the rest of the faces that we're doing, if you wanted to seal them, you would need to use a spray. You can use a spray fixative, but I recommend just wait until you're completely done and then use a spray varnish. Like I happen to love the Krylon Matte. Because I don't like to do real glossy very often with portraits. Sometimes I do. Lately I've been getting a little more into that. But for the most part, I usually, you know, finish off my portraits with a matte finish on them. And I just love this, the Krylon spray, because it's, you know, very quick, very efficient, and nothing smears, because you're not brushing over it. But let's go. Let's set her aside and let her finish drying. Now, while she's drying, this is dry enough for us to work with. So what I want to kind of get across is the fact that with raw paper, and hopefully I can manage it in this tiny little spot, but raw paper, when you use marker on it, there's a couple of things. Oh wait, stop. Everybody stop, no. You're going to get, your fingers are going to get extremely inky. I will try to remember to say this in the promo video so that you'll know in advance, but you want to try to use something that, some type of a skin protectorant. I tried wearing gloves and doing this process, and it's just not the same. And that could just be me, because I really like to be able to have my fingers directly to it and not have the glove in between. Some people, though, if they're more comfortable or used to using a glove, you could wear like a latex or a vinyl glove for this. I just deal with the fact that my fingertips end up being kind of inky, and it doesn't matter how much of this you put on, you're probably still going to have ink on your fingertips. So keep that in mind, you know, before you, you know, like I wouldn't recommend doing a face like this the night before you're going to go to a gala ball event or something like that, because you're going to have inky stained fingers, possibly. But I'm going to just put a little bit of this on really quick before I get started. So that way, at least hopefully most of it will come off. It's not, for me, it's not the end of the world, because, you know, pretty much every day I have paint on me somewhere. And, you know, most of the people that see me around are kind of used to seeing that. But for some of you, especially, you know, if you have like a professional career, you know, that you need to look presentable and work outside of the home, you might not want to go running around with inky fingers. So try to use some type of a protectorant. Now, I'm a student of Robert Burridge. He's one of my favorite artists and art teachers. And I've taken many of his classes, that all of the ones that I could take where I could purchase the class, because I don't live in an area where he frequents too often. But he says that you can get away with using just like a little bit of Vaseline, or what else? Maybe he just said moisturizer. I can't remember, but you can get away with, you know, various different things if you don't have any of this on hand. Oh, and now, of course, I have to crack my knuckles, which is so obnoxious, isn't it? All right, back to the task at hand. There's a couple of things that we need to be able to achieve. The first thing is we need to be able to move this marker around, this ink around, once we put it down. And without something to make the surface less absorbent, we're not going to be able to do that. So if I put marker, this is just the raw paper, you know, I can only barely even move that. But I want to really be able to move it. So if I put it on this, which is where the matte medium is, look at that. Look at how I can move that around. Isn't that amazing? The other thing is raw paper, when you're using this type of marker and you want to go over it and go over it, because these markers have quite a bit of water in them, your paper, and this won't do it probably as much, regular copy paper would do it really, really bad. But if you keep going over it, you can see here, now I'm going to try to bring it up really close so you can hopefully see it. You can see that the texture of the paper starts to become saturated and altered. I don't know if you're going to be able to see, if you can see that. But if you keep going over it, it's going to start to pill up. I mean, I can see it doing it really badly. See, now you can definitely see it. You can see how that's actually loose paper from the surface of it that's come off. But if you have something to protect your paper surface, like the matte medium, then you really have to work at it to get all of that matte medium off of there. You know what I mean? To saturate underneath of it before you're going to have that happen. So I can wipe it, and you can see that the only place where it soaked down into the paper was the location where I didn't have actual matte medium, so like right there. But otherwise it didn't damage the surface, and you need something like that when you want to be able to layer colors and you want to be able to smear and blend them. So those are the reasons, those two things. That's why we need to not work with raw paper for all of the rest of the types of marker that we're working with, because for all of the rest of the marker, we're going to be blending with our hands, and we're going to be layering colors, even with the more permanent based markers. So that's our experiment, and that's done. Now, working with these neons and highlighters, we are not necessarily working with a traditional color palette, because we don't have blacks and we don't really have browns. Now you can layer certain colors, like we can take a red, a yellow, and a blue, maybe a red, a green, and a blue in this case, and get a really deep dark color. So we can get close to those types of colors, and we can layer an orange and a blue, or an orange and a purple, and kind of get a bit of a brown. So we can sort of get there, but understand from right from the get-go that these are really bright fluorescent neon colors. This is not going to be a traditionally colored face, okay? This is going to look nothing like the first face that we did in our first class. So just so that, kind of beware that, that situation is, we're going to be facing that or dealing with that. Now, something that I really like about the color palette that you get with these neons and fluorescents now that are so popular is that you get a red, and this one's called spark red, and these reds are almost or very close to giving you a bit of a flesh tone. That's as close to a flesh tone of all the other colors that we have. And again, we're not doing a lot of ethnicities. We're doing pretty much just like a, Caucasian female, maybe a little bit European, but for the most part, we're not going to get into doing a lot of ethnicities. Now, I will do that when we get to, I think the pigment-based ones we can do that with, and we can also do that with the water-based, although probably with the water-based, I'm just going to go wild with the colors because those are my favorites. I think I've already said that. But for these, we're still going to stick with, mainly Caucasian. Now, this girl, actually, when I drew her, I intended for her to be ethnic, so to me, she's a little bit Latin, maybe a little bit Romanian, something in that area. So she might even still have that feel because it has a lot to do with the actual features, more so than it does with the color that you choose to use. But anyway, getting off topic completely. I like that we have the red, though, because I think that it helps a lot with getting some nice, skin tone. Now, you don't have a white in these, so if we get to the point where we want to or need to be able to access white and bring white back into it, let me dig that out really quickly. We have the one marker that I said you absolutely had to have, which was the white poster. We will use this with all of the rest of the faces. We will add this in when we want or need to. Something I will say is this Permapix, if you watched the supplies intro part where it explained that these were actually less opaque than poster paint regular poster paint pens, that can actually be a good thing. I know a lot of people think that this particular marker is, pardon my French or whatever, but crap, because it is so see-through. But that's actually a really good thing when we're doing the kind of stuff that we're doing here, because you have this really nice, really translucent way of lightening, or lightening, yeah. Getting some subtle highlights in. How's that? Okay, enough of the silliness. All right, so just keep that in mind. If I get crazy and I cover up areas that I really kind of would have traditionally wanted to be highlighted, I may very well go and resort to these. I might be a good girl and not have to. It's all about me controlling my excitement and, you know, my muse as I color things, or, you know, in this case, paint with markers. Okay, I'm going to start, how do I explain it? Depending on the type of paints you're using, some artists will choose to start with their darkest darks and work their way up to lights. That's traditionally what I do when I'm painting with my oil paints, because they blend so well and you can build upon, they're very opaque and you can build on top of them. When I'm using acrylics, I have a tendency to start with my lighter colors and work my way into my darker colors. That's how I'm going to approach with these, because they're very translucent, so I can wipe it back off, or I can add white marker if I need to, but it's easier if I just start with the lightest color and work my way towards my really dark colors. And then once I hit the really dark shadow colors, I can come back again if I want to and add more of the lighter colors in certain places. I hope that makes sense. So I'm actually going to start with the yellow being, or considering that to be my lightest color. Now, something that you want to keep in mind, not all highlighters or neon markers are the equivalent. So in order to see what we have here, this is the Hype. I think this is like a, yeah, this is just like a little Staples brand. So this is the really cheap Staples brand highlighter. This is our Sharpie highlighter. Those are really, really close. And then this is our neon marker. Huge difference. You can see it from way down there. See the difference that you've got here? So this is actually more subtle. These two are more subtle than this one. This one is awesome for, you know, like highlights. So I'm going to reserve that one back until the end, and I'm just going to use the regular ones. So let me move that aside. Okay, so I'm going to start with her face, and Papaya. Have you ever heard of the online mixed media artist? I'm not going to try to say her name, but she runs an online shop. Her and her mom run a business called Papaya. If you're familiar with that, if you're not, I'll put a link in the classroom for you to go and take a look at it. But if you're familiar with her, I love her use of, I've seen her do it several times, of doing yellow and then orange and then pink around the cheek and eye areas. And I'm kind of going to go with that a little bit. I'm not, you know, necessarily trying to copycat her, but come on, I love the way it looks, so, you know, I'm going to use it a little bit anyway. So I like to start, for whatever reason, I like to start around the eye area. It's just my place to start. I think everybody starts different, you know, not everyone starts in the same place, I guess you would say. But I like to start around the eye area, and because I know I'm going to do kind of like her cheeks and her blush and stuff with the yellow, orange, and pink, that's kind of where I'm going to start at. So I'm just going to kind of build a little, you know, rounded cheek. You know, like you could imagine there was a rounded cheek there, I guess, is what I would say. But I'm not going to do anything below, only up here at the top. So she's kind of going to have that going on. And then I like to make sure that I get a round hint of a rounded shape all along the edges. Instead of, a lot of the times you'll see someone paint a face and then go in and outline everything in black. Instead of doing that, I just try to make sure I get some color, the lightest color usually. Now you do have to be careful because we've put the matte medium on here. Your hand, especially if you're left-handed like I am, your hand will smear your ink. So this is just like working with wet paint. So turn your paper versus putting your hand over top of something like I almost just did. Now this girl does have her ears here, so don't forget to give a little color to those. And when I originally drew her, I kind of didn't finish off the top of her head, and I'm going to go ahead and leave it that way because otherwise I would need to draw it all in. So I'm just going to leave it not, you know, represented there. And then I'm going to, again, hit all of the outer edges, I guess you would say, of skin with some color. Now, I like to not leave sharp edges on the inside, so I just go through and make sure everything is a little bit round. So like make sure this is round here, make sure that kind of rounds off, and then if there's anything anywhere else that looks like it's kind of a sharp edge or a sharp point, just kind of round it off a bit. Now I'm probably going to give her a little highlight in her lips, and at this point I'm still thinking darker side here. Lighting is, maybe coming from here or maybe here, it just depends. But so there'll be a little highlight over here. I'm just gonna use a little of that yellow there, and I always generally put a little color in the nose. Now if we were worried about the edges on this, we could soften them just simply by using our finger, and it's going to stay movable for a long time because it's over top of the matte medium. But I'm going to leave that kind of harsh right there because I want that to really denote the sharp highlight. But I'll soften towards the inside, although adding more color is going to automatically soften. I usually don't have to soften too much in the very beginning. I do most of that towards the end, but I just want to show you that you can do it. So next, I just kind of started working my way through my colors. I'm actually going to go to this peach, more of a peach color first. I want to try this out and see how this is going to look. So I'm going to do her upper lip. Now it's actually pretty red. It's not as peach as it looks on the, what is this, pen marker case. So if I want to put it anywhere on the face, I'm probably going to want to really smear it. I'm going to outline the bottom lip with this color, but I'm not actually going to paint it that color. I do want to get a little bit of color into the rest of the face outside of the cheek area, so I'm actually just going to put a little bit down and then immediately blend it so that it's not so harsh. And it's going to blend along with the yellow, because the yellow, like I said, it takes a long time for the ink to dry when you're putting it down over top of the matte medium, which is actually, a really positive thing in the case of what we're doing here. Now here I don't want to blend it as much because the crease of your upper eyelid, we want that to be kind of a strong color. I am going to hint at an lower eyelid down there by just putting a little bit of color. You really do have to embrace the happy mistakes, because when you're using your fingertips to manipulate color, wet ink in fact, you've got to kind of give up a little control. But if you stay to yourself right in the beginning that you're giving up that control, it's so easy to give it up and not worry about it. If you stress throughout the entire process, you're really not going to be very happy. So I'm going to give a little bit down here. And then just a tiny bit on each side of the jawline where I think there would be a little bit of shadow down there. And then again, I'm going to do a little bit of that around the outer nostrils. Really kind of define this a bit, since that's going to be the heavy shadow area. Also, if you get to a point where you really need to blend something and it's kind of stuck, you can add a little more of that exact same color back over it to re-wet it and be able to manipulate it a little bit. So I'm going to put a little color just in the little tip of her nose here. And then I just want to make sure that colors kind of move around the whole face. And the whole piece. So I'm going to give her a little shadow here, kind of as if she had just, you know, maybe like a little bit of cleavage or something going on. And then the same thing around where the shirt sort of meets up with the shoulders, and maybe just a little along the neck area. Okay, so for now I'm going to stop. Well, actually no. I want to get the nostrils, get some darker color going on down here so we can build on that and get some depth into the face. I think I'll just put a dot right in here. There we go. Okay, now something that you have to keep in mind as you're working, your fingers are going to get ink on them. You don't want to, sometimes you don't mind mixing up the inks, sometimes you don't want to. So try to always remember at certain points you might want to stop, wipe your fingers off. If you can't wipe it off any longer, you may want to spritz a little water on, get it off, and put some more of your protectorant back on. Okay, so now I'm going to try to do the orange and pink stuff that I was talking about. So I'm going to go a little higher up than the yellow. And just like I did with the first face where we did the lines coming out here, I'm doing the same thing, but instead I'm going from the outside. So I'm just going to soften these a little bit. I'm not really trying to mix the colors or anything like that. I really just kind of want to soften them. And I've gotten a bunch of orange out here. If you're going to paint or color the outside, then that doesn't matter. If you're not going to color the outside and that is going to bother you, take a paintbrush, get it wet the area just a little, not like an overly huge amount, and then use a clean rag and it comes right off. That's the beauty of using the matte medium. So let me get this brush rinsed off really quickly. I forgot the ears. Don't forget her ears as you're working. I'm always forgetting my ears and not giving them enough color until the end. Alright, now I want to try to see if I can get the pink in there. So I'm going to come up a little higher than the orange. I'm getting it everywhere. And with this, it's almost like a kind of a manga style. So I'm going to go up above the eye as well. And again, you're layering colors over top of each other. That's your goal here. Okay, and then I always like a little bit of pink in the eyelids and generally up above the eyebrow. If you look at yourself in the mirror when you've got a little bit of a sun tan, or you've been out in the sun for the day, you'll notice that you generally will have a little pink above there, a little pink on the tip of your nose, and maybe even a little pink on your chin. So that's something to kind of like keep in mind. I learned that a long time ago when I was learning how to put makeup on. I actually, strangely enough, had a class. I can't remember why now, but I had a class where we were taught how to wear makeup or how to apply it. For the life of me, it was at a job, but for the life of me, I can't remember why, because I certainly was not like, in the beauty business or anything. So now I want to add a little bit of that pink, just like I did with the red, to the rest of her skin. And I really always like having a slightly warmer color on the lighter side and a slightly cooler color on the darker shadows, which kind of sounds wrong, but it works for me. I don't know that everyone prescribes to that style, but I like it. It works out well for me. Okay, so I'm pretty much, I think, good to go with this. Oh, there is one more place that I want to put it. I want to get it in the eyes, in the tear duct areas. And I don't want to smear it, but I do want to tap it back so it's not, quite so thick and dark. Okay. Now we can do a little bit of the cooler colors, and I'm going to first I'm going to start with this lighter blue. I'm being a little bit selfish and I'm using my highlighters and I'm not using the neon markers, but I'll try to make sure I do use them. Now I like to use the blues to get slightly deeper shadow coloring. So I like to put it on and then just kind of tap it around with my finger. Sometimes I will put it down and not touch it at all, depending on, how dark I'm trying to get the color. I always feel like the shadows are deepest pretty much at the corners of the eyes, up where the brow would meet the eye socket. And I usually like to be a little messy and go into the eye right there. Now I can see that I'm mixing colors on my fingers and it's kind of making a little bit of a mess. So I'm actually just going to locate my water bottle and spritz my fingers a little bit with a little bit of water, dry them off, and I'm not going to bother putting more protectorant on. But if you're worried about staining, then you might want to put some on because my hands are going to get stained from this. So now I'm just going to go through and deepen all the shadowing that should be over on this side of the face, and I'm going to just do that by just kind of painting with the marker my darker shadow colors. I'm going to hit everything that I want to have the darker colors, and then I'm going to come back and soften them as needed. Here it's going to go really green because there's just mostly just the yellow there, but that's fine. And then there should be just a few darker shadows on this side of the face, particularly where the hair might be throwing a little bit of a shadow, or there might be a little shadow due to the eye socket, that sort of thing. Okay, so now I'm going to do a little bit of blending, not a lot. I don't want to make a big mess. I don't want to blend the colors so much that I make mud. And I don't want to blend it away. I want the rich colors there. I'm going to remove a little bit of that off the lip there. I got a little more than I think I wanted down there, so I'll show you that in just a minute. Alright, so here on the lip I got too much, so just like I did before, this brush is still damp, so I'm just going to lift it off of there very carefully, because you can lift off marker that you've already put down when you do that. I'm going to rinse that brush again. And now I'm just sort of pausing for a moment and kind of just taking a look at what I've got going on. And, you know, thinking about whether or not I need to alter anything, any of what I've already done. Obviously, I'm not done by any means, but of the stuff I've put down, do I need to alter any of it? And really, I feel pretty good about it, with the exception that I kind of wish I had a little yellow. So I'm going to go back to that yellow marker, and I'm just going to get a little yellow in here. And I forgot to clean my fingers, so now I've kind of made a little bit of a mess. So get that off of there. When I'm not teaching and talking and, you know, failing to pay close enough attention, I actually try to remember dark finger, light finger, so that I don't have to wipe them off quite as much. But I get a little excited when I'm teaching and I forget to do that sort of thing. So I'm going to try to remember. So this is more or less my warmer, lighter color here. And I need to get some more of that yellow down in here as well, because I kind of obliterated all of it when I put the pink in. And if I were to rub really, really hard, I could rub all that pink away and blend it all into the yellow, and I don't want to do that. So you do have to be a little bit conscious of where you've already put color, which is one of the reasons why I kind of started light the way I did, so that I wouldn't have to hopefully, you know, mix lights and darks. All right. So now I just want to start basically adding in what I like to call sort of like spot coloring, and then as well coloring the rest of the features. So I'm actually going to color this bottom lip . And then I want to get the top lip darker, a little bit darker. So I've got this red highlighter. This is the first time I think I've ever seen a red highlighter. I absolutely love it. And it is red red. It's not that fluorescent red. Okay. And then since we're at it, we might as well get her eyes, and I'm going to give her green eyes. You're going to notice I don't color in that little bottom section, and that reason for that is because that's kind of where I want my reflected highlight to be. Obviously, if I don't use a white pen, I'm not going to get a really bright highlight, so just keep that in mind. I think I'm going to mix a little blue in just so I can darken around the outer edges and give a little shadow there. All right, and then I want to get a little bit of purple in to the face. Now, purple is another color that you can utilize to help darken your shadows. So I'm going to actually just dot it, and then I'm just going to tap at it with my finger so that I'm not blending as much as I was before when I was wiping it away. And again, there's some times where you're just going to put it down nice and solid and leave it as it is, where you're not going to even bother trying to blend it. And And then just for visual interest, I try to make sure, like I said before, that whatever colors I'm using are spread throughout the entire piece and they're not just in one place. Even if they're really subtle, it's nice to have them, you know, spread throughout the face. Now, for her top, I think I'm going to go with green. Well, I'm actually going to use the neon ones because I'm going to go with the green and the yellow, which are going to be really, really bright. I think I'm going to give it green for the little collar. And then I think I'll give the top, I'll let the top be the yellow and I'll let it kind of fade out. So in order to kind of let it just fade away, I'm actually going to take my paintbrush, get some water on it, and just kind of get sort of painterly with it here and just let it do its thing. Okay, now I've gotten some marker over here, so hopefully I can get it off. No, well, no, it must not have. Either that was there for too long or I didn't get enough matte medium over there because that didn't really want to come off too well. So now the only thing we really have left here is I would like to do her hair. Get this brush cleaned up. And I'd like to do that with, I kind of like make it brown. So I'm going to use orange and blue. And I'm going to start with these. If I can't achieve my color, I may just go to a really dark blue. But I'm going to start with the little eyebrows. Now remember, again, like I said, everything is wet. It takes a couple of hours for it to really, at least here where I'm at, for it to really, really dry. So now I'm just going to take the orange and try to blend these two together a bit, and we get somewhat of a brown. I won't try to blend these, you know, little bits here because they're so fine, it would just make them look really thick. But visually, with the two colors right there together, it kind of does the trick on its own without having to actually manually blend them. So now I'm just gonna accomplish, oh, I stuck my arm in it. Spent a lot of time cleaning up my mistakes of getting my arms in them. If you get frustrated, if you have these problems and you get frustrated, there's absolutely no reason why you can't wait and let things dry and then come back and continue working on it. Obviously, for the purposes of teaching, I kind of don't want to do that, and I really want to keep the momentum going. So, and I'm used to dealing with it. But if it's, you know, troubling you, then by all means, feel free to pause and, you know, stop your work and maybe heat gun it or dry it, and then come back to it. So now I'm just kind of visually look at it. I think I want the hair a little darker. I'm going to go with this even darker blue up here. Well, it's actually not that much darker. You know what I might do? I might go ahead and get some of this deep hot pink that I haven't used anywhere else anyway. It's almost like a purpley pink, which ought to help really push it to brown. Plus, it's just going to give some visual interest, like a nice little spark, because I haven't really used it anywhere else. And then I think in order to sort of incorporate it, I'm just going to outline the little collar of her top. Okay, there we go. All right, I think that she looks pretty good. She's pretty much done. I'm going to hold her up and give you some close-ups. Oh, you know what? Now I'm just getting all particular. I kind of feel like those need to be done. They're going to bug me if I don't do them, so I might as well just stop and get it done. Okay. Some close-ups, even, I mean, you know, she's not, I'll just, like, you can see there, so she's so, you know, it's so wet. And, you know, most of it is really, really wet. But I'll just hold her up here and give you some quick close-ups of it. I will mention at this point, because there's not really, you know, need for a whole lot of mystery any longer, down here where I use the water to blend it, you can, without a doubt, take a paintbrush and paint these colors. You can paint her. Instead of using, you know, solely using the end of the marker, you can use these as watercolor paints or watercolor inks. However, I really love the whole process of blending them with my hand or my fingers and leaving some blended and some not. You know, so getting some really sharp edges and some smooth edges. So I don't do that. But at least, you know, not with these, but you can definitely do it. And I figure at this point, seeing me do that down there, you probably went, oh, wow, wait, you know, we can do that. Now that I've been rambling on, I realize that I don't really like it's too light right here. It doesn't fit with this being the darker, you know, more dominantly more darker side. So I'm going to take that other blue. I'm going to turn it around, and hopefully without hitting anything that I don't want to smear, I'm just going to darken this whole side over here. See how beautifully they just blend so nicely with your fingers? I did smear this little bit here, so I'm just going to add it back in. Might even put just a little of it. I like this color, specific color. I don't know why. I really like that one. All right. So there you go. That's it. That's how we're painting. I'm going to pause and come right back. I'm going to hit this with the heat gun and get her dry so that you can see her both, you know, with it still wet, but also get to see it fully dry. Okay, she's pretty much dry. You only want to heat dry it, you know, so much. I really kind of just want to let it dry the rest of the way naturally, but it's not, you know, it's going to remain shiny because of the type of markers that they are. But if you just spray it with some spray fixative, it will dry right up, and it will dry on its own eventually. So there's our girl. And that's it for the highlighters and the neons, and I will see you with the next class.